studying the basic fundamentals of science of mind.
Is your mic?
And my light is green.
Is your mic on your face?
My microphone now. If it's not the light, it's not the battery, it's the microphone. Where could the microphone be? I ask.
Sometimes she puts it in places that... That's great.
You see, the power is always with us if we use it. That's all we have to do. And so it is. And so, my dear ones, I'm excited. I don't know about you. We've looked at our first Sunday at the life, the thing itself, the creator of it all, the first cause of everything, and how it works. It works through its law of mind and action. And what it does? Well, what it does is express itself. Indeed, it's always expressing itself. And today we're looking at how to use it. And this is probably one of the most important parts of the teaching and the embodiment of it. How to use this power. United are we always with this one power, this one mind, this one infinite being that is creative beyond all of our imagining, and with whom we already are one. We are already one with the omnipotence of life, the all-power of life. And because of that, any good thing, anything at all is possible for you and for me to express and to experience because of that. Because we are always and ever surrounded by this powerful good in the universe greater than we are that we get to use. And it's not only surrounding us, but it fills us as well. And this is not anything new. We've heard this over and over and over again. We know this. We really do know this. And Ernest Holmes says this is the number one thing we've got to know in order to embody the principles of science of mind and use it in such a way that our lives are advanced. And not just our individual lives, but all life. And then he said the next thing that we have to understand and know, that this power, the way it is used, it works on us through corresponding to us. Corresponding to what? Corresponding to everything we're thinking, everything we're feeling, everything we're entertaining, everything we're focused on, everything we're fascinated by, everything we own, everything we say we know, and everything we make the statement about that this is the way it is. And that's what is being corresponded to. And so the law of mind, the action of mind, what it does is, when I think it enough and feel it enough and own it enough, it wraps itself around what I'm thinking, feeling, and knowing. It corresponds to what I'm thinking and feeling and knowing. It molds that into an experience for me that I'm definitely going to manifest and have, because that's how deep I've been thinking it and feeling it and owning it. So this is what we call the law of correspondence. First thing Dr. Ernest Holmes says, you have to recognize this power for good in the universe and understand that all power is within you, available to you to use, and then understand the law of correspondence, how that power, that law, that action, that movement of infinite intelligence is a movement of correspondence. What I'm thinking, it's knowing for me and giving me the opportunity to experience in some way. The important factor here is that what I may be thinking, feeling, and owning may be on the affirmative side of life or on the negative side of life. Either way, it's going to correspond to what I'm thinking, feeling, and knowing. And either way, I'm going to have an experience as a consequence of that. It's going to be an affirmative experience or it's going to be a negative experience. One or the other, because thought is always attracting or repelling. It's always attracting or repelling. And then Ernest Holmes says that moves us into the third thing that we have to be aware of and understand in order to flourish and thrive and use this teaching in a way that embodies our good. He says we have to understand the law of attraction. So we have recognition of the one power that we are one with and is available to us. We have the law of correspondence and now the law of attraction. Now the law of attraction works with us and through us because your thought and your consciousness is creating a magnetic field, and so is mine. And so when you create a magnetic field, what happens is you attract into that magnetic field like manner. Whatever is likened unto it, you'll attract into it. So how I'm thinking is always creating this magnetic field of thought, whether it's on the negative or positive side of life. So if I'm thinking on the side of good and good and good things and only good things, I'm going to get that in spades coming at me. I'm attracting it into my orbit, into my magnetic field. And once that happens, I am going to experience whatever that is. I'm going to have a wonderful outcome or not so wonderful outcome, depending upon what I have been thinking. So there is a law of mind, and it's a law of mind in action. It is that which moves upon our thinking and upon our feeling, and it creates a result as the result of that action upon it. And so it's going to be an affirmative thing or it's going to be a negative thing, depending upon what it is we are thinking and feeling. Well, you would think that having known this, because many of us in this room have known this for a long time, you would think that our lives maybe would be different because of what we know. Because we know that mind is corresponding to whatever it is we're feeling, whatever it is we're thinking, whatever it is that's engaging us at all those levels of expression. And consequently, work with it in such a way that it's going to work for our good, you would think. Now, this is something that has become prevalent in the teachings of various and sundry masters since the time began, but it's only in the last maybe 100 years that people are realizing, for example, what it was that the master teacher Jesus was sharing with us and teaching with us when he was saying, well, basically he was talking about the fundamental principle of mind that has a correspondent action that works upon it and brings about the result. And he's just saying, well, it is done unto you as you believe. And if you believe it and own it and accept it and allow it, it's going to happen. And further than that, the teaching was, before you even ask, it will be granted if you are sure of it, sound of it, believe it, have faith in it, know it. It's going to happen even before you're finished wording it, because the feeling comes to you first and then you put the feeling into words. And he's saying that if you have so felt and are so convicted of this wonderful good going to happen, it's going to happen before you even mouth it, before you even speak it, before you even say it. Because that's how important and that's how potent and that's how powerful your thinking combined with your feeling is. It is a creative force, a powerful good in the universe that is a creative force that corresponds to what you're thinking and feeling and brings it as an experience into your life. That's the way it is. Now, if you think for a moment of, Ernest Holmes uses the example of these beautiful mountains in Colorado, and there's one section where there are wonderful waterfalls flowing out of all of this beautiful scenery and these mountains. And it always fascinated him, and it helped him to understand how the law of mind and action works. And he was saying, where's this water springing from? Where are all these different streams of water coming from? And they were coming from an invisible body of water within the mountains themselves. This wasn't a lake on top of the mountain at all. These waters were flowing from an invisible source. And he's saying that invisible source, think of it as that oceanic conscious awareness that you and I have, and the consciousness that we live, move, and have our being in. And as we think, we're creating a flow, because each one of us is a point, a wonderful point of flow in that ocean of consciousness. And you and I have the power to allow the quantity of water that's going to flow through. You and I can decide whether it's going to be, however it's going to be. Much more will flow through this than will flow through this. And yet the same body of water is available to both of these instruments to flow through. You and I get to create which kind of a flow we want to have through our open receptivity to saying yes to the fullness of it all, to a great confluence of expression, or to this much. And that depends upon what you're thinking with regard to what you can or cannot do. How much, Ernest Holmes' question, how much good is available to us? And his answer always was, as much as you can allow, as much as you can believe, as much as you can accept. That and only that is available to you. But all of it is available. But you, through the way you're thinking, you, through the way you're feeling, will decide how much is going to come through that portal. A little trickle or a great deluge, and all the various degrees in between. So, thinking makes everything so. And it's an extremely important endeavor, an action, an activity that we enter into every moment of our lives. And so, how do we ensure that we use this power most effectively? How do we assure? So after he has reminded us that we need to unify with this one power, we need to understand the law of correspondence, and we need to understand the law of attraction. He says the best way to make improvements in our lives and create more good in our lives and express more good in our lives is through changing our minds about things, changing our minds. That's the way you re-empower yourself. Because knowing all that we know, and God knows we have known this, many of us in this room, for a long time, we have known the process. We have known the way that life works. And still, we're discontented about many things that are happening. So what does that mean? Means that we have to monitor, be mindful about the thoughts that we are thinking. And he also reminds us that most of our thinking is unconscious. 85 to 90% of our thinking is unconscious. 85 to 90% of our thinking is unconscious. Unconscious thinking is random thinking, and random thinking is dangerous. It's like the throw of the dice. Anything could be the result. I could win everything or lose everything. It's random thinking, and it is dangerous. So, what is he saying when he says change your mind? He's saying, for heaven's sakes, look at your mind, look into your mind, see what's going on in your mind, monitor your mind, tune into your mind regularly, and not stay on automatic. We get into our car sometimes and we arrive at our destination and we hardly know we've been driving our car there. And you say to yourself, my God, how did I get here? And in this particular day and age for you and for me, with all of the electronic stimulation that we have and all the gadgets available to do our thinking for us, we are less inclined sometimes to be tuning in and monitoring our minds and seeing what's going on in our minds. And who is feeding our minds, and what is feeding our minds? Is it all the gadgetry, etc., or persons, places, and things outside of ourselves? Are we feeding our own minds? To what degree do we feed our own minds with wonderful, wonderful ponderings that is going to enrich us and enhance us? What exactly are we entertaining in our minds? And Ernest Holmes goes on to say the most important things to avoid in our thinking is the same things that actually Emma Curtis Hopkins says. No criticism, no condemnation. She says no criticism, no condemnation, and no complaining. Lo and behold, he comes up with the same three things to tell us to avoid. No criticism, no condemnation, and no complaining. Now listen in on people's conversations and hear the degree of those three things that you are going to hear a lot of. And almost unconsciously, people are not even aware of it to any great degree. And woe betide anybody who is aware of it and doing it deliberately, that is not going to be a pleasant comeback when it comes back. Because it is very clear, judge and you shall be judged, etc. So when he points out these three things, it's in Understanding the Science of Mind, the book called Understanding the Science of Mind. And it's in the first chapters. The whole idea is to clear and cleanse the mind of what depletes and stifles and destroys that good possibility for energy, or the possibility for good energy to be flowing through us. And to keep monitoring that, and be very careful about what we're feeding our minds, the food we're filling our minds with, make sure none of it is toxic to as much a degree as we possibly can. And you can say, well, I can't always be conscious, and that's true. But when you and I do wake up to, oh my goodness, I've been thinking of that for the last, 2 hours or 10 minutes or even a minute. Let me erase it and replace it. He's saying that's all we have to do. Erase and replace. Watch your mind, nurture your mind, nourish your mind with that which is whole and wholesome and true. As the great St. Paul said, whatever good thing is of trust, whatever good thing is of honor, whatever good thing is of faith, whatever good thing is of good, if there is anything of praise, if there is anything of virtue, think only on that. Let that be all you think. And it's amazing how that's the greatest medicine to heal us of anything. That's the greatest medicine. The mind's medicine is the greatest of all medicine. You think it, you think it, you think it. It seeps into every aspect of our being. As Deepak Chopra says, remember, every cell of your body is eavesdropping on what you are thinking and is changed by what it hears. So if those cells are hearing all that negativity, they're getting squished and the oxygen is being sucked out of them and they're fighting very hard to help us out here. However, if we're feeding it all that great good stuff, they're full of life and energy and buoyancy, and that keeps our immune system very strong. And it's an amazing thing that most of us, most of the time, do not understand that what we're thinking affects our body. Your psychology affects your physiology. And so remembering the power is with us already, it's present to us, and it doesn't matter how we've been or what we've done or whether we've been naughty or whether we've been nice, it doesn't matter. That power is still available to you and to me. And then to understand how it corresponds to our thinking and feeling, and then realize I'm a magnetic field. I'm attracting into myself everything I'm thinking. That is, everything I'm thinking deeply and feeling about. And then, okay, take charge, take charge, take charge. If I don't like the way my life is going, look at what I've been thinking, look at my mental atmosphere, and if it needs changing, then change it. Change it. Because you are in charge of your mind, no one and no thing else. You are in charge of your mind. And as the scriptures say, in the Eastern scriptures, they say the self must raise the self. The self must raise the self. That's the Eastern scriptures. The Western scriptures say, physician, heal thyself. Heal thyself. Only one way. Through the mental processes, through the way we think, through the way we feel, through what we agree to, through what we allow, through what we own, through what we say we believe or decide to believe. We have to ask ourselves, what in heaven's name are indeed we believing? I remember the story that Scovel Shin tells us about a mother who came to visit her and said, you got to do something to help me with my daughter. She's very unhappy. She's truly unhappy. Years ago, she had a very unfortunate break-up with her boyfriend, and the engagement was broken off, and she was very hurt by it. And since then, no relationship seems to have worked. Oh, poor Nell, God bless poor Nell. What are we going to do for poor Nell? And straight away, Scovel Shin said, stop the poor Nell business, number one. My goodness me, is this what you're feeding the child? Poor Nell, poor Nell, poor Nell. But anyway, she worked with the mother and she worked with the daughter, and of course shared what I've just been sharing, which is what most of us know. And a whole change occurred because Nell was willing to go with the flow of another way of thinking and another way of being. And of course, she ended up happily married. I mean, and another person came to Scoville Shin because she was always short of money and so on and so forth. And she calls her having a cowardly energy around money, and the little she had was being very withholding of it and so on. But however, she worked with her. And eventually this lady came into the understanding that, she was going to give this a shot. She was going to try this positive thinking. But more than positive thinking, she was going to be affirmative in her life with regard to understanding that there was a source in her that would never, ever stop sourcing her if she was open and available to it. And so she decided she was going to try this one out. You know, she was asked to try it out for a month or two and see what happens. So she began to be quiet and do her meditation. She got intuitive. And she'd go on whatever the intuition was, and sometimes it didn't make sense to her, but the intuition would say, you know, I think you need to get new clothing because the clothing you're wearing gives you the consciousness of poverty. They're just making you feel less than, and they're making you feel poor. And she'd go out and buy new clothes and so on. Started that way until eventually she was actually tithing 10%. Of the little she did have in her own mind. She was tithing 10%. And of course, you know the story because she was taking it seriously and doing it for the right reason and going truly with it, even though sometimes she was a little bit scared. She'd go back into knowing the faith that would set her free, faith in the truth of supply, and that source was her supply. Out of the blue, a family member passed on and she got $1,000 out of the estate, and then later on she got another $1,000, and more later on, several thousands of dollars came into her. Then she began to get all kinds of prosperous opportunities, and her whole life changed because she had changed the way she was thinking. She was working with the law of correspondence, and she was working with the law of attraction. And it was working for her, and it happened for her. So today I wonder what we're all working with in this room. I know there are some of us in this room that are lacking something or another. There are some of us in this room that want to release and let go of something or attract something, or get clear about something. Well, here we have the opportunity now to use the tools that are available to us. I mean, what is it going to be? Are we going to sit on the chairs for another Sunday and say, you know, that was great, Ernest Holmes is amazing, the way he got to the kernel of it and so on, and walk through the door, forget about it? Or are we going to respond to what is in us going, saying, yeah, I know that, yeah, that's true, yeah, I know, that makes sense, yeah, I'm going to do that. But will I? The thing is, will I? And if we could just take one thing, just one thing, one challenge, which we call projects here, take a challenge, turn it into a project, work the project, and realize the good that's going to come out of it. And you don't have to prove it to yourself. I don't have to prove it to myself once this works for me to know it works. And then if it worked in that way, it's going to work in this way. If it can work on the parking space that I know I'm always able to get, it can work on any good thing that I wish to realize. But remember, it has to be for the good, because the law will not go against itself. The law will go against you and go against me if what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and what we're wanting is in any way doing the slightest harm to anything or anyone. That only comes back at ourselves. So we have to purify ourselves, as we are told. Purify my heart and set a steadfast spirit within me, the scripture says. So we have to be clean and clear when we come before that law of attraction and that law of correspondence to make sure that we get what is good for ourselves, because what is good for ourselves is good for everything and everyone on this plane. Here is the thing, oh my goodness me, each person in this room is sourced full of that power. That power is available to you now, it always has been. And each one of us in this room can draw from this power. We can create the portal. We always create the portal. How big the portal is up to you and it's up to me. Remember, that much that you can allow, that you can receive, that you are available for is the much that you will experience. So the question is, how far is your mental reach? Because only that far can you go in accomplishing and achieving the good that you desire. All power is given to you, which means all good is available to you, which means you can start right here and right now opening yourself up to be that wonderful experiment on this plane that proves the law of good, the law of life, the law of the power and the presence in the world, in you, everywhere present, that is all powerful and available to you now, not tomorrow, now. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to do anything except open up the mind and let the good out. Notice I said out, not in, because it's always been within you. So let us open up our minds this week, this day, and let that goodness out, and get out there and spread that good everywhere, and make the difference that this world is waiting for us to make, because we can do this. We can be the good in the world that the world needs us to be right now in order to coalesce it all, bring it together, unify it all, and have some sense and sensibility and good come out of it all by means of you. You and me. We're the only ones that we can expect anything of ourselves. So if it's going to be, it's up to me. Yes? Yes. So it is.